Hello, everybody. Welcome to our public meeting this evening. My name is Mike. I'm going to be your facilitator for the evening. I work for the City of Miami. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for the city. That will be mostly irrelevant for this evening. What we are going to ask you to do first and foremost, because this will be an interactive meeting, is if you are a member of the public, please, at the very least, get to this center section and come towards the front. So if you're out there on the sides, please move towards the center area and towards the front. So let's get, we're going to get moving because we are going to ask you towards the end of the meeting to participate. So what I wanted to do and be respectful of your time, to let you first and foremost know how this whole meeting is going to run. What we're going to do first is we're going to have a couple speakers that are going to come through, talk a little bit about two key topics that we'll be covering this evening. One is the city's budget, and two is the GO Bond. So if you haven't heard about the GO Bond yet, you're going to be hearing about GO Bond throughout this meeting. And then the second half of the meeting, probably more like the last 3 quarters, if we're running this right, will be you all providing us feedback, and we'll guide you through that process. Okay, so again, my name is Mike. If you got any questions, what I will ask of you, there will be plenty of time for you to provide feedback, and we'll try to do that in a structured way, because our goal is going to be to collect as much feedback as possible in a limited amount of time. So we'll walk you through what that process is going to look like. The first thing that we're going to do is let you know who is in the room that will be speaking. So first thing that we will have is Commissioner Russell is here joining us, and I believe we're going to have Hing Puppet say a few words. And then after that, I will introduce our budget director and our assistant city manager so that they can come and speak to you. So what I would ask is pay close attention at the beginning, because these things that you're about to hear are going to frame our feedback and our interaction towards the end of the meeting. So particularly if you are not yet familiar with what the GO Bond is, keep your eyes set on the speaker. So Commissioner, if you'd like to say a few words to start us off, that would be great.
Hold your applause, hold your applause. I was kidding, because nobody applauded. Thank you for coming. For you to be here on a Monday evening means you really care about the inner workings of the city. I've been trying for the last few months to try to make a GO Bond cool and get people out and talking about it, and it's actually not very exciting. It's very dull stuff if you look from the outside, and you know, this is the inner workings of government and the taxes and the budget and how we spend. But if you care about these things, it is very exciting, because this is our ability to dream as a city of what we want our city to become, what we want to build, what we want to fix, what we want for our kids for the future. And the fact is, as much as we tax ourselves, we don't have the resources to go out and do some of these big dreaming things. And it's not just about what do we wish or want, it's about the political will to do it and the public will. So I really hope that everybody takes part in this with a sincere heart of trying to understand, one, whether or not we should do this, and two, if we did, what should we do with the funds that are generated from it. My personal position is that this is your decision as the voters. It has to get past the elected officials first to get on the ballot for this November. You have my vote on this. I believe there are at least 2 other votes that are on that city commission who would vote with me, and that 3 votes is what you would need to get this on the ballot. And my argument to the other commissioners is that to let the public decide on this. They will understand whether this is a tax or not a tax, as long as we educate well, and that's what these meetings are about. My personal opinion is that, could we lower taxes but for this? Probably. Should we? In my opinion, no. Because the least efficient thing you can do is tax $1 and spend $1. Tax $1 and spend $1. For us to actually tax $1 and then leverage that into multiple dollars, that's a smart business decision. And if we have that bonding capacity now without raising taxes, I don't think we have any other option but to go for it, but to do these big things. What should they be? I've been getting requests, even since last year when this failed, of what we should do with it. Things having to do with resilience and sea level rise, the big issues of infrastructure, transit issues, historic preservation issues, affordability issues, and we're taking note. And there will be a line item for these things. Obviously, at the higher end, and the math will show if we have up to $270 million to spend from this, that actually doesn't go as far as it sounds like. So there will be a campaign for what should go in there. Now that has to be decided before the electeds let it loose. That's not something that can happen at the ballot. So that is important for your input now. The upcoming 4 more meetings, if I'm not mistaken, you're welcome to go to those and participate more. And what you learned from tonight, you think about it, you want to go back. But it's about the future of Miami. And I think it's a smart spend of our resources. And I'm glad for your input and support here tonight. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, since we're asking you to provide feedback, it's really important that we give you a foundation so you can give us better feedback at the end. So we're going to do a couple things. As I mentioned, first thing is we're going to go over an overview of the budget. So if you came in here, you've never had any experience with City of Miami's budget before, it's all right, we're going to fix that. Actually, our budget director is going to help fix that. But pretend you don't see him over there, because the first thing we're actually going to do is we're going to show this fantastic video that he's created for us to tell us a little bit about City of Miami's budget. Cue video.
Hi, I'm Chris Rose, City of Miami Budget Director. Most of you have probably heard about TED Talks. Their slogan is, Ideas Worth Spreading. As we begin to prepare next year's city budget, we would like your ideas on what programs and projects should be a priority, like affordable housing, parks, or traffic improvement. You get the idea. But first, it's helpful to understand where your tax dollars come from and go to today. So welcome to Chris Talk, Miami Budget 101. To begin with, it's helpful to know that the city really has 2 separate budgets. An operating budget that is $979 million. This funds day-to-day operations, such as personnel, pens and pencils, electricity, etc. And a capital budget that is $681 million over a 6-year period. This is large projects that often take more than 1 year, such as roads, buildings, and parks. The operating budget has 4 funds in it. The largest is known as the General Fund at $670 million. It funds the majority of what you know as City of Miami operations. The largest revenue source is in the General Fund is property taxes, which make up 45% of that fund. Other funds are franchise fees, making up about 15% of the revenues of the General Fund. These are fees that companies, such as utilities, pay for using the space under the city's roads to run wires and pipes, and other fees to operate in the city. Charges for service make up 16% of the General Fund revenues. They are for specific services that the city provides, such as marina fees or fees for passports at the clerk's office. Intergovernmental revenues make up about 10% of these revenues, mainly revenues shared from the state of Florida, but also a small amount from the federal government. Licenses and permits make up about 8% of the revenues. These are building permits and planning and zoning permits. There are 2 ways to look at where the money goes. The first is by category. The main thing to know is that 74% of the city's general fund pays for salaries and benefits. This is right in line with most local governments. The other way to look at how the money is spent is by function. We have 4,789 employees. 1,764 are in the police department, 822 are in the fire department, 208 are in solid waste, and the rest are in all other departments, including 18 in my office, the Office of Management and Budget. A full 53% of the city's general fund budget is spent on public safety activities, the police department and fire rescue. 12% is spent on public works functions, fixing the potholes, picking up your garbage, and running the trolleys. 9% on general government, which includes internal services such as human resources, and also includes code enforcement and neighborhood enhancement teams. Planning and development represents 3%. This is the building department and the planning and zoning department. Parks and public facilities make up about 9%, and the remainder is in functions that don't fit into any specific department. In conclusion, the average tax bill is split roughly a third between the county, the school board, and the city, although the city is a slightly larger share at 38%. That is to say that all of your property taxes don't go to the city, but go to fund several different governments. I hope this has given you a better understanding of the city's budget and how your tax dollars are being put to use.
And extra special treat for you, we have the star of Chris Talk.
Thank you.
Mr. Chris Rose, our budget director.
Well, clearly we had some fun putting it together, and just for the record, that emoji is not me throwing money in the air, okay? That's me grabbing money, okay? It's bringing money back down. There are just a couple of thoughts to put on there. I hope it got a high-level overview through a very short period of time. Two things that we need to mention are, one, the city really adopts two separate budgets every year. One, the operating budget, and I know we said this in the video, but I gotta make sure we understand, that's the operating budget is people, pens and pencils, it's day-to-day operations that go on. The capital budget are the things that take a little longer. They're larger projects, parks, buildings, roads, things like that. The other thing that we did not get in the video that I want to make sure everybody knows is the city's budget year runs from October 1st every year to September 30th of every year. So we are right now looking forward to the budget that will eventually be adopted and go into effect on October 1st. So this is your chance to give us some ideas on what to include in that budget. And Mike, that's everything I've got.
Thank you, Chris. And we are going to give you an opportunity to comment on these things, and we'll do that here in a minute. Before that, we're going to transition into Go Bond. It's everyone, I guess we heard about it in the beginning at the very least, but before coming to this meeting, had you heard about the Go Bond? Okay, good. So we've got a lot of folks that have heard about that. So with that, I will invite our Assistant City Manager, Fernando Casamayor, to talk a little bit about the Go Bond and what we have so far.
Thank you, sir. Hi, how are you? My name is Fernando Casamayor. I am an Assistant City Manager and the Chief Financial Officer for the City of Miami. Thank you for being here. Seeing folks out here listening to us do what we do actually makes me very proud and happy to do what I do, because it shows that someone appreciates what we do. All of my departments are very boring. None of the really exciting things that you saw up there in Chris Talk video with the police and fire and all those amazing things, I got none of that. I got budget and finance and procurement and all those things that no one really cares about, unless, of course, something wrong happens. So, a little bit about a GO bond, a Go Bond. A GO bond is for very, very large capital projects. These are transformational things, things that put a landmark on cities. We already issued a Go Bond several years ago. In 2001, we issued a Homeland Defense bond, which paid for various projects. And I think we have a video up here that will show just some of the money, some of the projects that you already bought with your Homeland Defense bonds. so thanks for sitting through that. I appreciate it. As you can see, there were some very large transformational type projects that we did with the Homeland Defense Bond that you approved. Most of those projects have been completed. Now, we're still paying off some of that debt because it's like a mortgage. It takes 25 to 30 years to pay off. The opportunity that we have right now, and the reason that we're asking you to give us some feedback and input, is that we are at a position where we can issue another GO bond. As we're paying off this debt from Homeland Defense, we can use some of the money that's raised from this GO bond to do projects like what you just saw. Transformational, like some of the amazing parks and some of the large facilities that you saw, but also some of the things you don't really see, some of the stuff that happens underground. You know, a lot of our infrastructure projects, drainage, roadway improvements, those are large-scale things that we need to take care of. And, you know, sea level rise is, whether you believe it or not, it's something that's happening. Drainage and flooding, I mean, flooding is a large problem that we have in various neighborhoods in the city of Miami, and we've identified a list of projects that we know we could utilize something like a GO bond in order to fund. Now, if you ask a city employee what's important to them, we're going to tell you what's important to us based on what we see every day. What we can't give you a perspective is what you can give us, which is a perspective of citizens that see much more of the city than sometimes we do because we have blinders on, and we really only focus on those things that are in front of our plates. You as residents have a much better perspective than we do as employees of the city regarding your everyday existence in the city. So what we're hoping that we get out of this discussion today is not that I convince you to vote yes or no on this bond issue. What I really want is to get some feedback regarding if this were approved by our city commission and eventually by the voters, what are the type of projects that you believe are important for us to focus on? Now, I mentioned before that we were paying off the debt that we issued in 2001. We have several payments that are coming in the next couple of years. They rise a little bit in the next 2 years, and then they drop significantly. This is the opportunity that we have when those debt payments drop, is to use the existing millage rate. Does everyone know what a millage rate is? Yes, some nods, maybe. A millage rate is basically a rate that is set by your local governments that taxes you for the services that are provided. The technical term millage is 1,000th. Right? So for every $1,000 of value of your property, you pay a particular rate. The existing debt millage rate for the city of Miami is 0.6435. It was a lot higher at some point. It's been dropped down over time as we're paying off some of these bonds, the responsibility that we have. We don't want to overtax anybody. So we start dropping our millage rates down based on what our obligations to pay are. So right now, it's set at 6.435. If we don't have a GO bond issued in the next couple of years, we're going to have to drop that down to 0 at some point, and we won't have the ability to tell you we're going to utilize the existing tax rate that you currently pay to fund all these additional projects. As we drop that millage rate down, and eventually down to 0, if we need to issue more debt, we're going to have to ask you to pay more than what you're currently paying in taxes. So that's the reason why we do this now. The other reason that we do this now is that our bond ratings are AA. We have excellent bond ratings. We've done a lot of very good work in the city of Miami in order to improve our financials. The bond rating agencies have noticed that. Our revenues are good, and this is a good opportunity. Like they tell you, the best time to borrow money is when you don't have to, because when you really have to borrow money, it typically is not a good time for you. And those people that issue debt watch what your revenues are and what your expenditures are, and typically, if you're in the hole, you're not going to get a very good rate on whatever it is you're trying to apply for. Now, a very quick GO versus operating. So we have $600 million or so in operating capital. Chris mentioned that in his TED and Chris talk. Those are for maintenance items. So yes, we can build parks with that money. We can fix roads with that money. But it's the equivalent of using your paycheck to fix a leaky roof, which can happen. That's the right way to do it. If you have a small maintenance item in your home, you will use your existing revenues to cover patching a roof. You're not going to use your paycheck to replace the entire roof. At that point, you might take out a second mortgage. You might have to take out a mortgage on your home. You may have to borrow some money. And this is what we're asking to do, is use this to not patch things, but to make new things and create larger, better projects. So we've heard about resiliency a little bit. The way I look at it is this is all resiliency. Whether we have better stations, better fire stations for our firefighters, or better equipment, or we fix roads, or we improve drainage, or we prepare for sea level rise, all of it makes Miami a more resilient city. So that's my spiel for you. I'll be here to answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to turn it back over to our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Mike Zarasti. And again, I thank you very much for being here. It means a lot to us. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. Okay, so now we're going to go into the second interactive portion. I gave you the heads up. I'm going to putting you all to work. First confession, while I have done what we're about to do before, I have not done it in a room with this kind of setup, and there's actually quite a bit of people here. So we're going to see how this goes. I ask for a little bit of patience as we sort of work through this together, but I mean, you all look like pretty active participants, right? So we're going to use a technique. We're going to use a lot of Post-its today. We're going to use a lot of markers and Sharpies, and what we are going to do are a series of more quiet exercises to get you to sort of brainstorm individually, and then collectively we're going to kind of come up and then we're going to have a discussion about that after. So what you're going to see coming around, take a stack of Post-it notes. Your stack should look like this. If you run out of Post-it notes, I will give you some more. Also, you want to have a black marker, so you will either have a Sharpie or you can take one of these like dry erase ones if you're more comfortable with a thicker marker. If you have a lot of ideas, you can only put one idea per Post-it note. So Maggie, I'm looking at you. You want to get a thicker stack if you want to do that. Okay? So, all right. So a couple other rules, or I should say guidelines that we're going to do. Someone asked me a little bit earlier about what we've already, what's the list of projects, what we've sort of allocated for. We want to wipe the slate on that clean today. So as Fernando said earlier, we obviously, we have informed decisions that, are things that we are thinking about, but we are really taking a step back and taking this public feedback as a way for you to help guide that discussion. So we are wiping the slate clean on what that is. We are going to give you 3 categories, okay, that are going to serve as a reference as we move through this. As we think about projects, what are the 3 categories that we are looking at? One of those categories is public safety. It's my terrible screenwriting, right? All right, we're going to do public safety. The next category is going to be flood, sea level rise mitigation. And this could include things like roadway reconstructions, right, that might help with that sort of thing. So think about this particularly broadly. And then the last category that we have is parks and infrastructure. And just to give you an idea, as you're thinking about things like infrastructure, I think that's right. I'll rewrite this again in a second. So these are the 3 sort of broad level categories as you're thinking about things. When you think about infrastructure could also include things on a technology standpoint, like Internet of Things, for example. Yes, sir. Oh, no, we're totally engaging right now on this process. Oh, yeah, for sure. We're going to have a couple ways to do that. There's a lot of people in the room, so to make best use of everybody's time, we're going to do this, we're going to do it in a quiet, structured way to start, and then we're going to leave some open-ended space at the end. And there are a lot of city employees here as well that will also be available for you if you want to have a discussion. Okay? So the first thing that we are going to do, does everyone have their Post-it notes and their markers ready to go? All right. So I want you to start writing, and I'm going to create some space for you. I want you to brainstorm, right? Anything that you, top of mind, anything that you want to spend, that you think, now that you know what the Go Bond is, and the type of projects that we could spend that money on, start writing one idea per Post-it note of what we should be spending this money on. So an example might be fire stations. If you're going to do fire stations, that'd be on one post-it note. One might be pump stations. If you want to do pump stations, that's one post-it note. Put as many ideas as you have, things that you think are important to you and priorities, one idea per post-it note. So that's instruction set number one. Now what I'm going to do while you're doing that is I'm going to put up 3 separate sheets, one here, one there, that will have these categories along the top. So if your idea happens to be a public safety idea, you're going to walk up your idea and you're going to put it up on that public safety board. Does that make sense? All right, so start writing out your ideas. I'm going to do my own as well, right? So you can see sort of how it's going to play out. So start with that, and then we're going to do something similar around the budget priorities as well. And I'll walk you through that in a second. So we're going to take, let's see, where are we now? It'll take about 5 minutes to do that and put your first round of ideas. And just start writing as many as you can, one idea per note. So for clarification, someone just walked in. These are for your Go Bond ideas. In a couple minutes, we are also going to provide feedback on the budget. Okay? If you're confused about it, don't worry about it. Just write your ideas, whatever you think we should be spending the money on, and we'll do some recategorization later. So I don't want you stressing out about what goes where. Yes, ma'am. We're going to do budget right after this. Yeah, and we're going to do that a little bit differently. Okay? I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, so one of the questions that came up as we're doing through this, are you limited to only providing your ideas in these categories? So for purposes of this exercise, yes, okay? If you are a little bit confused about which bucket this should go in, we're going to put it over on the infrastructure side, okay? And then we will do a recap and we'll talk about that. I'm going to invite probably Mr. Rose to come up and we're going to talk about these ideas. If in fact they do not fit in these categories, because just like anything else, these are not final categories, it may turn out that we need a 4th category, or a 5th category, or a 6th category. So I don't want you to be limited by those categories. If you're stuck, you don't know where to put it in, we're going to put it on the final infrastructure one, and I'm going to put it on the last heading over there. Yes, sir. We are going to have just a little bit so we know where we're going. We are going to be doing specific projects first. Then we're going to talk about concerns and things that we have around the process. Then we're going to do some open-ended stuff towards the end. If you are ready and your post-it notes are accumulating in your laps, you are welcome to come and put them up on their respective areas. So if you have a public safety idea or a flood sea level rise mitigation on this side, and we're going to have parks and infrastructure here on the right. Okay, while you're finishing up that, we're going to do one more thing before we jump into a readout here. So now I want you to think about, you heard Mr. Rose's talk about the budget. We're going to do an exercise called a plus delta. This is a fun one, okay? This one's kind of simple. So we see over here, we've got a plus sign and a delta sign, and I'm going to recap that here in a minute. The plus sign means you want us to keep doing it. We're doing it well. So for example, if you think that we're doing a great job with a particular park, then you would put a post-it note and you'd put it over here on the plus sign. If there is something that you want us to change about the budget, you would do that on the right side. So change may say, I want more money invested into sidewalks, right? So you would put more money invested into sidewalks. That may or may not be something that you're already listing over here. I don't want you thinking about that now because we're going to reshuffle these things around in a minute and kind of shape them. So on this side here, this is now budget. So remember Chris was talking about operational. These are not kind of the big visionary projects that Fernando was mentioning. These are more everyday operations. On the left, the plus is things we're doing well, you want to see more of. And the delta here is things that you would like us to change. So I'm going to put up here budget. Again, one idea per post-it note. All right. What's that? The plus? Oh, I'm sorry. We're back over here. So plus is, so your budget board is over here on the left now? This is what we're doing well. Yes, we love hearing about that. And we love hearing about what we're not doing well either, because if we don't know, then we can't fix it. So again, I'm not seeing much on your budget, Mr. Rose, so we might have to, yes ma'am. Yes, okay, so I'm going to do, so again, thank you for that piece of feedback. So since some of you were up here and thinking about your ideas, we're doing another quick round. And by the way, if you get another idea sort of in the middle and you kind of want to walk around me behind and throw something on the board, I'll pretend I don't see you, so that's fine. On the budget side, we've got, this is what we call a plus delta. On the plus side are things that we're doing well and you want to see more of. And the delta side, things that you want us to change that may not be going so well. Yes, ma'am. So yes, that is the idea. I don't want you thinking about that too much because it might get a little muddy. If you think it's maybe like a capital thing that we're already doing in the budget and you want to put it on both, that's fine that you go ahead and do that. I don't want you stuck on the categories. I just sort of want you putting things on there, and then I'm going to invite our star budget director to come back in a minute, and we're going to go through these and we're going to read them out and have a discussion about them. All right, we'll close this portion out in about 60 seconds. Again, just want to be respectful of everybody's time as we kind of move through this. If you're going to post on Twitter, use the hashtag GoBond while you're at it. So while we're doing that, I'll give you a little bit of insight as to why we just did what we did, and hopefully now that we've been through one round of this, you'll see some of the benefits, right? We just collected a lot of individual ideas. If you've been to public meetings before, what we want to prevent is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 really loud voices, or someone that may be a little bit too shy to speak up in the room. So this provides us a mechanism for us to collect a lot of feedback from different types of people. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to have a readout of these ideas. We're going to walk through them. Did Mr. Rose leave there he is. All right, so we're going to do a readout. We're actually going to start with these. We're just going to read through them. If we need some clarity, and this is your idea and I'm reading out, and I'm not exactly getting it right, please sort of raise your hand. I may either ask you, but if I'm butchering the idea, please make sure you call me out on that. So all right, we're going to start here with some public safety ideas. We will loop around to the budget side. It's great. So public safety, and I'm going to try to go through this quickly, again for sake of time. We've got more street patrols. We've got public safety, speed bumps, traffic circles. We've got CBD streetlights, CBD, Central Business District streetlights. So I'm going to write that just as a note. Central Business District, Central Biz. Great, so this is exactly what we want to do. Someone took more street patrols and put that here in part of the GEO bond. That particular thing is not something that would fall under this category, so we're moving it over to budget. All right, so that's exactly what we want to happen and play out here. We got implementation of downtown pedestrian zone requirements. Who's that? Again, can you? Sorry. Sorry about that. You got, is it good? Okay. I'll give you all a mic next time. I apologize. Chris, is that appropriate to be in that category? Great, fantastic. Better or implement new, improved trainings for police when engaging with a mental illness person. So that we will move over towards changing something we might want a little bit more of, and we'll put this over here at the end of the budget, because that would fall more on our operating budget. Info booths. Who wrote info booths? What do you mean here by info booths?
Information booths throughout the community, making awareness of what's going on. Sometimes there's a negative perception, and if we could just increase information so that people feel comfortable with information about what's going on in an area.
That's great. So more information booths around. Did we already? Great. So we moved information booths. Let's move info booths over towards more money in the budget for information booths throughout. In your example, what we may do is more facilities and big facilities to put more information centers actually might fall. I don't know, Chris, how you want to? We might want to do both. So I'm going to put. Can you write info booths on there? We're actually going to put that one in both. Street lighting. We have street lighting improvements. We have a police substation, a downtown police station where people live, safety lights, so a lot of street lighting and lighting things on make things safer, better street lighting, public safety, funding to police department for technology that can pick up guns. Who's that? And you don't have to tell me if you feel more comfortable not speaking, but so this could be a technology, maybe something a little bit more, I guess it would depend on the technology, right? Right, okay, great. We'll leave that one there for now. We have dump-free zones. Move that one on the other side. Great. There you go. Community policing training. I'm going to move that one as well. Sir? Public safety, street lighting, so we've got that. Modernized traffic management technology to facilitate self-driving vehicles. That's actually a great example of Internet of Things technology improvements that will fall under capital. Drug enforcement, personnel, police department. Christopher?
Yep, you got it. Yep.
Put that one over here. Great. And we've got fire and police neighborhood relations, pay or incentives to live in the city of Miami. We're going to drop that one there. And with the final entry, we have got funding for subunit in West Coconut Grove. Mr. Rose has advised that that is moving as well. Okay, great. We are moving now into flood, sea level rise, mitigation, and roadways. So here we have bike lanes, complete, Chris? Bike lanes would be a, is that the right one, or we move it to parks and infrastructure? All right, cool. That's actually one, can we put it in the middle? Sure. Great. I mean, bike lanes in the middle. So we're going to have some of that, and I'll talk about an example that fell over on when we get to the other side, which is I'm not exactly sure, which is why we suspect that these categories maybe aren't like the best fitting. So don't get hung up on the categories. All right. So we got drainage improvements in downtown Miami, new seawalls and raise the streets. Design is on-road Miami River Greenway along the Miami River. So that's a specific one. More trees, tree planting plan. Chris? Okay. Upgrade homes from septic to sewer. So pump stations, better transit to downtown. Environment workshops. Environment workshops.
Bring that over here. Got it? Yep. And one quick thought on trees is you don't want to take out a loan, essentially, on something that's not going to last for the life of the loan. That's why cars are 5 years, not 30 years when you're taking out a car loan. So trees, you can ask for more trees, and we would do them along with the projects that are out there if they were in a GO bond. They could also fit over here as well. So lots of things can fit in multiple places. As long as we've got it somewhere, that's what we're really looking for. Sorry for the interruption, sir.
Who wrote Plan Z SLR mitigation? Are these two separate ideas?
No, but the Plan Z is part of a mitigation effort by getting cars off the road.
Okay. All right. So
Whatever, just stick to Plan
we're going to leave Plan Z on there. Okay. So I was going to call you out on two ideas per post-it note, but we're going to stick with Plan Z. Can you tell us a little bit about Plan Z so we know what that is, just so everyone in the room can understand that?
From what I understand, Plan Z is connecting US 1, connecting the underline to Key Biscayne through a bike paths. And then it would take some of the Crandon, the causeway, and it will turn it into a linear park,
Great.
right?
Sounded close? It's close
Right.
enough? Okay, great. Thank you, Megan. All right, we have here engineers don't let us flood, so maybe not a specific idea, but we're going to keep that as a theme that we want on this side. Use solar energy to power city facilities. Cool. We've got pump stations, funding for sea level rise, impact committee. Okay. Is that yeah, all right. Retrofit city facilities for solar. Dedicated bus trolley lanes. Underline, again, as a sea level rise mitigation. Baywalk, Riverwalk. Sea level wall levee. Sewage lines for areas under septic tank systems. We got more trees again to the point, so we'll leave that so it's represented everywhere. Mapping GIS flood zones, entire city. Put that one over there. Great. Cool. Parks and infrastructure. So this is, I think, just looking at it, as our heaviest board so far. So we've got lighting in parks, solar. We've got the Coconut Grove Theater. We got restore rather than demolish and rebuild city pools, especially in Morningside. Miami Green, Biscayne. I assume Miami Green, Biscayne, that's the downtown project, right? Who wrote that one down? Who wrote Miami Green, Biscayne? Is that what you're referring? Biscayne Green, great. Water access areas for non-motorized vessels. The complete streets. Parks, infrastructure, housing, low to affordable cooperation. that about right? Over there? Okay, great. Olympia Theater repairs, money for parks so parks don't have to self-fund with big festivals like Ultra and others. Miami River Greenway, I think we mentioned the Riverwalk. Build Commodore Trail through center of Coconut Grove. Proper park funding, staffing, maintenance, adding more park spaces. Which one? The self-fund. Here's if you can find. Yeah, finish Museum Park, improving public transportation, Vyrick Park renovation, more explanation about parks on city website, history of each park. Tech and coding camps, community-wide engagement workshops. Those again, I'm moving over on the opposite side. All right, we got off-road bike paths, Brickell Downtown Tunnel, protected bike lanes. We have a youth and mentorship programming. We have sidewalks in the Grove. So this is one that sort of depends, right? This is one that falls in those middle categories. We don't know if it's like have some implication for resilience and sea level rise mitigation if we're doing that. Or it could just be a general infrastructure project.
Yeah, right. So the sidewalks in the Grove is one of those perfect examples that it can fit in multiple places. If it's repairing sidewalks, it fits an operating budget. If it's creating new sidewalks that aren't there already, it's certainly something that we can do as part of a GO. And yes, as I said before, all of this is, mitigation and resiliency, so it's all in the same boat.
Great. So we've got subsidies for housing for working class poor. So we're going to move that one. We've got historical preservation of primarily black communities. We've got low to moderate income housing. So that's the affordable housing component. Is that in the right? That's on the right, correct side, right? Yep. Park jobs. Park jobs goes to the other side. Park lighting. We've got parks. Comprehensive testing for contamination of the grounds near the old Smoky incinerator. We're going to move that one as well. Historic preservation. Okay, we'll leave that one here. Bikeways, a trolley app that works. You can come see me about that one after. Funding to go towards complete improvements of Vyrick Park, not just a pool. More funding for the underline, dedicated bike lanes, including underline and Plan Z. More bike racks. More bike racks, great. Brickell Avenue Tunnel, connect the river walkways, Bayfront and Museum Park. Streets resurfacing of potholes. Streets resurfacing, we're moving that one over. Compost pickup, bring compost to local farmers. Moving that one as well. Trash pickup, change to 1 time per week. Recycling pickup, change to 1 time per week. Moving that one. Okay, so as you can see, we took some of your ideas. We still seem to have actually we have maybe a little bit of a shift. We've got a lot of heat over parks and infrastructure, but we also have got some heat over flood, sea level rise mitigation, and roadways. And we got, Chris, a ton of great ideas for the budget. Yeah, and we may, good point. We may find some projects over here that we need to move over. So we will do another layer of this after this is done to move these things and kind of slide them along. Okay, now we're going to do one more of these exercises. Post-its, your last post-it note exercise. Do you still have post-it notes or do you need more? Need some more? Let's slide some more. Great. All right, so now we want to do, you've heard about the GeoBond. You've seen what your peers and your neighbors and your community is proposing. Now we want to hear a little bit about what your concerns might be around the Go Bond. And this will help us understand what the community is thinking about, whatever it may be. I don't want to shape or inform or push it along anyway. So, I'm sorry? Either way. Either way. So if you've got a ton of concerns, same rule applies. 1 idea per post-it note.
Okay. Miami-Dade County reneged on a general obligation bond. which was for, part of that was for the expansion of home ownership. They reneged. I'd like to know, are you held captive from not addressing the issue that they did not address in the 2004 general obligation bond, which was for $2.9 billion, was for the expansion of home ownership for low and moderate income households, providing first and second mortgages. See, the things that are most important to the people in South Florida, for what I can see, and as you're saying, is not important to our elected officials. So that's what we need, and it would be fiscally irresponsible to put more bond debt on the taxpayers as you're closing in on paying off some. My wife and I have had over 4 decades of raising children, and I know that you don't start getting into debt until you had some time to clear debt and capture some revenue for savings. So to say that we're going to just get a bond and it's no big deal, the money's going to fall off a tree or out of the air, is fiscally irresponsible. That's my position, and I could be incorrect because I don't know everything, but 1 or 2 that matter I do.
Thank you, sir. Let me take a stab at a couple of those. First off, on the county's general obligation bond, what the county did with their bond money is, but I will guarantee you that whatever projects we put on a list, at least as long as I'm here, whatever projects are put on a list that we're going to go to the taxpayers and say, hey, we're going to do these things with your trust and your money, we are going to do what we say. Now, there will be an oversight board as part of a GO bond that will approve any changes that may occur as a result of projects no longer being feasible. But I'm just letting you know there will be some safeguards regarding that. The second part is paying off your debts and then immediately getting into more debt before you have an opportunity. And I understand where you're coming from because I too have a family and I own a home and I have a budget at home too, and I'm not the budget director at home. But this is very different from a family. A typical family, it is, but trust me, I didn't open the Pandora's box to not finish it, I promise. The city of Miami is a family that has lasted for over 100 years. And hopefully it lasts for at least 100 more. So there is no empty nest syndrome in the city of Miami. And even though residents, if they live in the city for multiple years, they get older and they are retiring and their income streams are changing, but we have new residents coming in and it's a different age group, and your kids are now having kids and your grandkids will be having kids at some point. And the city is going to continue moving on even though we will all not be here anymore. So you can't really look at this the way you would look at personal finances. You kind of have to look at this over a very, very long haul. And let me address your point. So if we get down to zero, like I said, and we pay off all of our debt, by law, we cannot charge you that millage rate anymore for debt. So we would have to drop that down to zero. So yes, you're not going to be paying any more debt on some of these capital projects. But if there's a need at some point, and again, you never know when there's a need. In my home, I didn't think I had a need until my AC broke, and then I had to replace it. Things happen in the city, very similar things happen in the city. At that point, I'm not coming to you to ask you to help us pay for things without dipping into your pocket any more than we already did. At that point, I'm asking you to tax yourselves more, which is a much different proposition than coming to you and saying, look, we can afford and we can do all these additional projects without costing you any more than you're already paying. And there's the difference. So I hope I addressed at least a couple of your concerns.
Okay. So,
What you say is not the measure of a man, but what a man does is the measure of a man. So how can you allow us to see how the finances you have been collecting are being beneficial to the needs that we have that are greater than what you have there? And Dade County has an oversight committee as well. And they oversighted the fact that they were supposed to be expanding up to 500 homes in Miami-Dade County. And of the money, of those $2.9 billion, the city of Miami should have said, well, look, we'd like to capture our portion because we need home ownership in our city. So what is Miami doing with the portion that they should have been capturing on behalf of the residents in the city of Miami? That's all I'm saying. I know you don't have all the answers. No one person does, but I just want to make certain that it doesn't slip your mind. You know, start paying off debt.
So
And
as the person charged with keeping this moving forward, okay, we had a long list. That's actually a great example of a long list of concerns. We heard quite a few there. So you've probably, hopefully, all been doing a little bit of writing about your concerns about this. Now we need to document those, right? So we can do this one by one in that format. This is sort of the way that we can get everybody to contribute at the same time. We're going to put them up over here on this board. I'm going to move this to the front. And then we will bring our assistant city manager back up to address and do the same thing I did with Chris, going one by one about some of these concerns as time allows. And we will continue. This is not a one-stop shop for feedback. We're going to continue this dialogue. As I mentioned before, today was a bit of an experiment. It's the first time we've done it this way. We're going to give you a web link at the end of this where you can continue providing some thoughts. If you get to the end, if you get home and you're like, oh, I forgot to put something, we're going to give you a shot to do that as well. And as we sort of flesh things out, the same link, we're going to be updating that. It's going to be a much fuller website that will be able to continue this dialogue moving forward. Okay? So this is your board. I'm going to move this one out to the center now. And if you have concerns, one idea per post-it note. You've probably already done that. Go ahead and bring that up and put that up on this board over here. And it's okay if you walk up there and your concern is already up there once. If we see the same idea showing up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, that's a good thing. That means that there's heat around that. We can see that. So this helps us also get a sense of the things that are at the top of the list. Okay, all right. Okay, great. So we're going to do the same thing now. This time I'm going to ask Fernando to join me and we just do a little bit of a readout. I am going to read them all out first. Before we get into it, I'm not going to necessarily ask him to address them all one by one as we go. He will address them all, but sort of after, and he'll be impromptu presentation. All right. Are we ready? Everyone with us? Great. Stop the aggressive construction in West Grove. Competitive bid versus underwritten GO deal. We can never be free of bond debt. Whenever one bond gets close to being paid, there is always a new bond proposer. No such thing as a temporary tax. $270 million is not enough. Historic preservation in West Grove. Affordable housing. Disrespectful police officers. Rising housing costs. Keep debt millage consistent for the next 10 years. Bond debt is guaranteed to be repaid by unlimited ad valorem taxes. Take back Watson Island. Single-family homes in West Grove. Acquisition of land for affordable mixed-use developments. Need APR campaign to get this passed. Wish it was allocated according to where the taxes are generated. Get rid of some peacocks. I live in the Grove with 42 peacocks in my tree, so
We are gender neutral at the City of Miami. They're peafowl.
That's right. Outside developers' investment in the city. Does the city have the staffing to implement bond initiatives? Use of the word resiliency should be for sea level rise, not sidewalks. Can't sleep on weekends due to the nightclub noise. Concerns over low affordable housing and lower speed limit. Street cleaning, higher crosswalk signs. Loss of the tree canopy, especially in the Grove. Displacement of people of color, low-income families. Approval, continual of upzoning in low-income communities. Concerned about existing balance on previous bonds, acquisition of more debt, prospect of getting less revenues, and ad valorem. Job creation and more funds for housing development in Village West to restore community to its original viability.
Okay, some of these are financial, so I'll do my best to handle some of those. Some of these are not quite financial, but if I can't tackle them, I'm sure we'll have some folks in the room that can attempt to do so. And if not, I would invite you to contact us offline, because some of these are some things that I don't have a one-liner for. This is going to take a long, in-depth conversation, and I'm sure you guys don't want to hear me talk all night. $270 million is not enough. Yes, you're right. $270 million is not enough to address all of the issues and needs of infrastructure and capital improvements that the city has. $270 million is all we got right now with the capacity that we have going forward. If we want to make sure that we don't raise your taxes, which is another issue here about can't afford to do more, keep debt millage consistent for the next 10 years. Well, this is our attempt to do that. If we don't do this, our debt millage will not be consistent. It'll drop down to zero. So at that point, there will be no debt millage and there will be no capacity to issue debt unless we raise taxes. Let's see. Wish it was allocated according to where the taxes are generated. Fair point. I don't really have an argument to change your mind on that. The only thing is I will tell you it's a large city. Some neighborhoods are much more affluent than others. It doesn't mean that we can leave other neighborhoods that are less affluent behind. And I'm going to use the argument, I used to be the tax collector for the county. Okay, no. But I would get a lot of questions regarding, why am I paying for school board money? Why do I pay for the school board? I don't have any children. I would get that question a lot. Or, hey, I have kids and I pay for a private school. Why am I paying for the school board? It is something that we do as a society. And we put this money in as a society in order to educate our children, whether or not we can afford to do them ourselves. So that's the best argument that I have regarding that point. Use of the word resiliency should be for sea level rise, not sidewalks. Well, I'm going to argue that sidewalks can lead to resiliency. If you have cracked and broken and destroyed sidewalks, it's very hard for a city to bounce back from an economic issue, which we have economic issues as well. We have neighborhoods that might crumble down. We have property values that rise and fall very quickly in this town. And if we're trying to build back up a neighborhood or a community, part of that is the visual. Part of that is it welcoming for people to come and live and work and play here? I'm going to argue that broken sidewalks, very similar to broken windows, it's one of those things that as a city we need to address in order to continue to be resilient. Loss of tree canopy, especially in the Grove, that is correct. There's a lot of capital projects that we've talked about here, and some of that will include some tree plantings and additions to the tree canopy. Let's see. Street cleaning, higher crosswalk signs, okay? Job creation. Look, guys, whatever we're funding to do with these projects, people are going to have to do them. People have to put shovels in the ground, people have to work machinery, and then once these facilities are completed, people need to work there. And again, it's a magnet. A government office, a government facility, a government building is a magnet. So if you have 20, 30, 40 people at a location constantly, all day, every day, around it, those businesses will start to pop up because they need to service those employees and those citizens that are going there for services. So this certainly qualifies as job creation. Did I miss anything else? More funds for housing development. That's a good point, and we can certainly address that going forward with whatever we decide to issue here. Oh, peacocks, peafowl. Watson Island. We should take back Watson Island. Anyone on this side of the room want to address the Watson Island and take it back? That's policy. It's a legal issue. And I'm sorry? Competitive bid versus underwritten deed. Okay. Well, what do you mean by competitive bid? You mean to...
Hundreds of studies have shown that municipal issuers that use the competitive bid method for issuing GOs achieve significant interest savings compared to those issuers that chose the underwritten method. Is the City of Miami committed to a competitive bid? And if not, why?
We are committed to get the best possible rates that we can get for whatever issuance we have. And yes, correct, sometimes a competitive bid will give you better rates. Sometimes a private placement can give you some better rates, depending on the conditions of the market. I can't tell you what we're going to do right now, but I guarantee you the City of Miami certainly does believe in competition and a competitive process. If we can do so as the market dictates at the time that we're issuing some of these bonds, because we're not going to issue all of these bonds in one shot. We will issue these bonds as projects come to the maturity, and we say shovel-ready. That was a very popular term that was used a couple years ago. That's what we're looking to do. So if we have a total capacity of $270 million, and in 3 or 4 years we have a $40 million list of projects that we're ready to go forward with, we would issue a $40 million tranche at that point. And then again, depending on the market conditions, we can either go to a competitive bid process. We have a very good bond rating, so it certainly is going to help us. Or if we can get better rates with a private placement, we could do that as well. So I guarantee you the commitment is that we would try to get the best possible rates that we can at the time. Hopefully that answered your question, sir. Yes, ma'am. Fernando.
We still have $130 million to pay in the previous bonds. And now we're contemplating and floating $270 million. You're saying you're not going to raise the taxes, but the prospect of the city getting hundreds of millions of dollars less in ad valorem taxes is very great because of what the legislature passed very recently and what I believe the citizens of the state of Florida are going to pass, which is another exemption of $25,000. I am concerned that when the time comes, you'll have no choice but to raise my taxes because you will not be getting the income that you actually floated the bonds upon to pay them back. How can you put me at ease?
Well, I can't put you at ease that Tallahassee is not going to continue to try to dictate what local government does. But what I can do is very similar to what I mentioned to the gentleman here. We're going to be issuing these bonds in certain tranches. So if we get to a point where we have a $25,000 exemption that's been passed, or let's say they go nuts and add another $50,000 exemption 3 years from now, because it can happen. At that point, what we haven't already issued, we just don't have to issue. So this isn't permission to issue the full 275, it's permission to go up to that amount. And if the market and the conditions change as we go through this process, then we're going to issue a lot less debt. That doesn't help you if we've already issued the debt and all of a sudden when we're paying this off we have some changes. But I can't give you any assurances of what our future is going to look like. If I could do that, I would be in Las Vegas making a lot of money and not here doing this.
But that is like the individual who actually makes $50,000 and lives like $200,000. You have to have a certain control on what you're actually going out and actually floating the bonds for. One thing that I'm concerned about is sometimes the commissioners have their own plans for the expenditures of the money. They have, I need this in my district, I need that in my other district, And it is extremely important that the commissioners be aware at all times about the fact that they're not getting the money. So don't spend the money, because then we are going to have to pay for it. We're going to have to come and save the city, the administration, for an absolute debacle, and then you're going to have no choice but to raise my taxes later on.
Madam Solares, you have one of your elected officials here, and I'm sure he heard every word you said.
Boss, Chris over here, just another thought is you could issue it slower, not all as fast as we would like. If the triple homestead exemption or future ones come, you could do them longer, which also means the projects would take longer to do. But there are things that you can mitigate as you go to ensure that we stay within the property tax rate.
What we're not going to do is issue a full $270 or $275 million on day one, because there's no sense in issuing debt if your projects are not ready to start. You end up just having money lying around, which is not good, and actually we have certain requirements for spending money once we ask for a debt issuance. So we have a certain amount of time in order to actually spend it. So we don't want to get into a position where we can't spend what we've already asked for.
I'm a resident of downtown, and in our district, in our area, we have an issue where there are nightclubs, and it's called the Entertainment District. And these nightclubs are 24-hour nightclubs, and so most weekends we spend listening to all night long, 4 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, you name it, we can hear it. And there's also a very clear noise ordinance, and it's clearly also being violated, and we've been told time and again that there's no budget to provide code enforcement on the evenings or weekends, which it happens to be when we need it so that we could sleep. And we are a pretty large property tax base, so I'm curious to know why we can't have that.
Thank you. Well, we are going out and doing some enforcement at night and on weekends, particularly on the noise ordinance, and I know your district commissioner is sitting back there, and we have informed them regarding standing back there. We have addressed with him some of the tactics that we're going to take in order to try to mitigate some of the issues that you have with the nightclubs and the noise levels at night. There's technology that we're looking at that'll try to help us pinpoint who's violating what, because again, there may be some clubs that are actually abiding by our code standards and some that are not. It's just very difficult to pull them out. Understood, but if 2 of them are doing the right thing and 2 of them are not, it's hard to pinpoint which ones are the ones that are not doing the right thing. So we are looking at certain improvements that we can make with technology, as well as scheduling some folks to work at nights and weekends, changing some shifts of folks in order to try to mitigate your concern. If you like, offline, we can give you some more information regarding what our code efforts are in your neighborhood. Okay, excellent.
Okay, so this is a great actual, so you don't have to leave after this, so we'll be a little bit more time if you want to speak with somebody. But like I mentioned earlier on, I wanted to make sure I was respectful of everybody's time, so we're going to have a breaking point here at 7:30. If you want to go ahead and go, we're going to finish this portion of the feedback session. You can stick around. I know some folks handed me some Post-it notes and additional cards, so we will do that. You can stay and do that and have your questions if you want to stay. I'm going to ask you to do one more exercise where you're standing up. Actually, 2 more, because it just occurred to me. We're going to be doing this several other times, so I want to make sure I don't miss the opportunity. I told you we're running an experiment, so I need your feedback if this worked or if it didn't work, so we know how to do it moving forward. Okay, so we're going to do one more plus delta exercise on this break here, so we can break right at 7:30. I'm also going to hand you, there's 2 dots here, right? So there's a blue dot and a yellow dot. And I want you to do is take that blue dot, and you're going to put it next to, of these 3 categories here, the category that you really, really, really want to make the most investment in. And then take the yellow dot and use that in your second pick. So you get 2 dots, 1 per person. 1 second, sir. You are voting on the whole category. Yes, good question. You are voting on the whole category, not specific ideas. We still have to process these ideas and sort of dissect. So again, not the last time we'll be asking for public feedback. There'll be other meetings, and the idea is that as we move forward, we're able to refine this. Again, if you have a question that you still want to ask, staff will stay here so that we can do that. If you are a member of the public and you want to sit and you still want to participate and hear a little bit more about that, but I want to be respectful of the folks that have been here and want to make sure that they make their way out. So the last thing I'll do, come get some dots from this board up here. Trust issue here, only get one set of dots. Don't get 5 sets of dots and use 5 dots of each color, right? They'll be right up here, and then the last thing is I'm going to put a plus and a delta sign, and if you can find some Post-it notes, I'll put them up.
My last question.
Excuse me 1 second, sir. Let me finish this thought. Thanks. Thank you. I'm going to do a plus and a delta. Plus is things that you liked about today's session, and on the delta, things that you would change about today's session. So for example, if you didn't feel that there was enough time to ask questions throughout this format, put that over here on the change. I want to hear about it. If you liked this format, keep that on the plus sign. And then I'm going to close out my piece of what I'm doing here, and staff will stick around for your questions. If you want to go, go. If you want to stay, stay. And thank you. Oh, one last thing while you're doing that. miamigov.com/GoBond. So what you'll find on there right now is just a simple 2-question survey. That is where we are going to, as we go through this and dissect this, we are going to be publishing content on there. It's miamigov.com/GoBond. And if you have additional feedback that you want to provide at that point, if there's additional comments or something you forgot, go ahead and put that up there. Dots, dots. We have dots up here in this section here.
Provide additional comments through that website?
Yes, you will be able to provide comments through that website. So it's miamigov.com/GoBond. And again, in about 5 minutes here, staff will remain around for you to ask questions and make comments.
Hey, Mike, I want to thank everybody for coming. This is the best feedback we've had in a long time. So I'm going to be looking at all those. Anyone else that engages on the budget is a friend of mine. So thank you, thank you.